Great. So just like I said, we're just going to do a little takeaway for everybody. I don't know how to move to, there we go. Oh, sorry, I've got to give it time. Free takeaway, a classical tool for your journey. So if you're just popping in to see what this is, to see if you want to stay, it's fine if you need to go after 5 minutes. I'm going to give you a free takeaway, a classical tool for your journey, however you homeschool. The first thing that came to my mind when I was thinking of a topic, I don't know why, was the burger. So we'll consider the burger using some classical tools. So this will help you to smash it. So when you are wondering where to begin, if you've got a new topic and you don't know how to begin to explore it, this classical tool will help, I hope. So it's called the 5 common topics of learning. Well, it's 5 common topics of invention. What a gorgeous picture. So topos, topics comes from topos, which is Greek for places. So essentially these are 5 places that we can go to help us to think, do some blue sky thinking about a subject. These 5 common topics of thinking are definition, comparison, relationship, circumstance, and testimony. Just going to see if I can lose these videos because I'm easily distracted. Okay, so let's move on. Mnemonic for remembering those: definition, circumstance, relationship, comparison, and testimony. We can change the order of the T's because there's 2 of them. Is, do computers really convey truth? That's just one that I've used, but that's just another little memory trick for remembering things. So I'm just waiting for my screen to catch up with what I'm asking it to do. Come on, the screen, I want you to go to the next slide. Okay, so back to this burger. We're going to just use 5 common topics of learning. Remember, these are tools that you can apply to anything. So I've chosen a burger. We could choose a lamp. We could choose Aristotle. We could choose Jesus Christ. We could choose exams. We could choose anything. So these are the tools. They're super flexible, which is why they're a takeaway, because you take them with you wherever you go. So definition: what is a burger? What are its parts? And there's some huge percentage of arguments that actually come down to this definition, defining terms, just misunderstanding one another's terms. So it's actually a really key one, and it's a really fun one. I think sometimes we don't delve into it as deeply as we can. So with the burger, what is a burger? What are its parts? There's far more questions you could ask on that one too, by the way. Comparison: how do burgers compare to one another? How does McDonald's compare to a Burger King? What about a vegan burger? What about the bread? How does a focaccia burger taste? What about the Savoy burger? Is there even such a thing? And I wrote that. I remembered my friend who's from Liverpool came to visit me, and we actually went to the Savoy because she wanted to go for a cream tea, and we couldn't get in because we hadn't booked. I was quite glad because it was super expensive, but we did go and have a burger in the Savoy. And I didn't realize that until I'd written it. So anyway, it's just a little funny story. So the other thing that you can use is relationships. So you want to think cause and effect. And I realized as I was thinking about the burger, I was then thinking about the waistline, but let's answer it anyway, even though we might not want to. So what caused the existence of the burger in the bun? Why do we have fast food restaurants? Why did that man do Supersize Me, and is he still alive? What effect on my waistline will it have if I eat burgers every week, or my children's waistline? Is it okay if I do this, but don't mix it with carbs? So with relationships, you're just always thinking about how they work, what the cause of something and the effect is. So you can get a lot of mileage in this one too. The next common topic we'll look at is circumstance. How did the humble burger begin life? What was going on at the time in the burger inventor's life, in the life of his family, in the life of his church, his work? What about in another nation? What about in another part of the world at that same time when that burger man was making the burger? What was happening on the other side of the world? Why is a burger considered healthy by some and unhealthy by others? Does the circumstance in which the burger is prepared, cooked, or served make a difference? How about what it's eaten with? How about how often it is eaten? So many burgers, so little time. So testimony is another important and the final common topic, the place that we can go to for information. Who is saying what about the burger? So this is a great one because we all have something to say about everything, and especially nowadays with the internet, so do a ton of other people. And so we want to think about the authority of the places that we're going to for information and weigh up what we think about that. So I'm sure you've had a chance to read through while I have been talking. That's the amazing thing about how God's made us. So that was a little free takeaway just to allow time for people to hop on a bit late and to just see whether you think a classical tool or the whole classical thing might be something you want to hear a bit more about. If you did have to go, I just want to flag that we now, as of this weekend, by God's good grace, have classicalconversations.co.uk. It's so exciting that we have our own website. That's the good news. The bad news is we don't yet have our own printing company and, ability to get you the materials. But the good news is it's coming. So this time next year, shipping fees, extortionate ones, will be a thing of the past. But there is another great thing, because there's a free gift coming at the end of this session to do with that very thing. So a little roadmap of where we might go in our short time together. So we've had the free takeaway. I'll do a very brief introduction. We'll look at some scripture very briefly, and I'll give you a bit of info about classical conversations and hopefully some next steps if you're interested to find out more. Okay, our growing family. So when we started time educating, Jake in the middle, who's now 17, was as big as Joe in front of him, who just turned 7. So we've got Tim to his left, and then my husband Johnny, who was concentrating on the selfie, which is why he's got that expression. And then Sweet Pippa is 13, Jake's 17, Tim's 15, and little Joe is 7. So we've been doing homeschooling for 10 years, and by God's grace, we found classical conversations quite early on. I have always wanted to know stuff my whole life, and law, and always felt inadequate and empty, for want of a better word. And I think I thought the secret to having a good education is probably going to a good boarding school, because I felt like the people that had been to boarding schools were articulate and able to dive into a debate without thinking, I don't really know, I might get lost, which is pretty much what I'd always thought. And I always thought, what kind of a society allows someone like me to be a lawyer when I don't know anything and I'm basically just a fraud? And I was sort of realised it wasn't just me. When I got a job in Vancouver, my fantastic, frightening boss sat me down in the boardroom with another couple of lawyers to go through balance sheets for companies. And it just struck me then, he's giving these other lawyers that were older than me a little lesson on balance sheets. And he was exasperated because we were rubbish at it. And I just thought, look at us. Like, why at 60 can he understand all this stuff so easily? And why am I struggling? And why are these other lawyers struggling? And I guess at the end of the day, it comes down to our education. And we can talk a bit about that. So what is an education? Let's have a think about that. So I guess what I've just said there is a bit like that first quote, that after all the years of my schooling and reading, I lack the resources to answer the big questions of life. And then, of course, the Bible tells us that knowledge puffs up. And this is, I find it, I'm humbled by it because I think it's true. I think we've got a problem in our society. And I have that problem. And I know when I was a mum, it's got that whole thing. It's like, oh, yes, my children have got to be good at this and good at that. And then I read a freeing verse, if not a verse, a freeing book, actually. It wasn't a Christian book. I don't think it's a Christian. Steve Biddulph. And he just said, do you really want your child to be that genius? It's a pretty lonely life. And I thought, oh my goodness, yes, that's terrible. I don't want my child to be a genius. So thankfully that came my way about when we started home educating. So that was freeing. But this is just a lovely verse. And I guess this is also my testimony from doing classical conversations, that actually God looks at the heart. And I know we as homeschoolers know this, that actually we're dealing with so much more than the academics when we home educate. And I'm sure God's doing it to encourage us to realize what love means. Because true love is, of course, Christ, and Christ is sacrifice. And we do know something about that as parents, for one, and as home educating parents. So back to the education. So the Latin roots is the verbs educare and educare, which, I've spelt them the same. They're actually E-R-E at the end of one of them. That's my mistake. So that they mean to train and to lead out of. So the question is, what are we training and leading out of our children? So I know I'm a little bit into it, but I would like to start with a prayer, but I promise that doesn't mean I'm going to go on and on and on. So I picked these verses, because there's a little tiny snapshot of our community there, so Yinka's on this call, and all credit to Yinka and her faith, because Yinka saw classical conversations in America and attended a community, and she has a wonderful story. You can go on the website and hear her story, and she's on the call today. And actually, we hope this is all right. We don't want to be doing the wrong thing, but we've just put a lunchtime chat on Zoom. So if anyone wants to go and ask some of these mums that are on this picture about becoming a CC family, they're going to be on Zoom at 12. So I'll put the link up for that. We will do other ones too. So if you're all zoomed out at the conference and you just want to do anything else other than sit on Zoom for another half an hour, then there'll be other opportunities. But we just felt sometimes, of course, when you're on these things, you kind of want to get all your answers as soon as you can. So that's happening at 12. So Yinka's one to thank Yinka. Thank you. She brought CC community to England. I've been while she was learning how to do it properly, I was having a go at doing it wrong in England. Basically, just didn't know how to do it. And CC were growing and they weren't able to equip us at that book. But so the way to describe doing foundations by yourself compared to do, or even like with one other person but not signed up with a community. Now, of course, you could. This is a great thing about home education. Choose what you want to do. I'm just telling you my story. It's like going to Sainsbury's and getting a pre-packaged meal for dinner. It is what you do when you get your foundations guide and you do it at home. And when you do it in community, it's like having a banquet, because you just get so much more. In community, you do art every week, you do science every week, you do, this is foundations 12 and under, you do presentations every week, you have an assembly every week, you share lunch together, you play games together, you fellowship together, you pray together. It's just a whole wonderful thing. So I'm sure while I've been rambling on, you've read this, and I was thinking this morning about a funny little picture of the nose. You know, what would it be like if I was just a nose? You know, I might be all pleased that I can smell really well, but I couldn't even move. You know, I couldn't see. And this is the thing with us as Christians, and why church is so important. And then as homeschooling mums, what we found in community is it's the same thing. You know, we just all bring something. And because classical conversations rely heavily upon the Matthew 18 principles, so that as humans, we do fall out, we have problems, but it tells us in the Bible what to do. If I have a problem with Yinka, I don't need to go and talk to Mary about it. I need to go and talk to Yinka about it. And so that's what we do. And we all sign up to that when we join. And surprise, surprise, God's plans actually work really well. So that's what we found. Now, obviously, you know, we all have our moments, but following Matthew 18 principles work. And being a part of the body and just doing your bit as God's made you to be works really well too. So we can all feel inadequate together, but do a wonderful thing together that we can't do when we're on our own. So I would just like to pray, and I would just like to thank you, Lord, for bringing us together. I don't know if everybody on this call knows you, and I didn't know you until I was 23. But you are the giver of life, and you are love itself, and there's no love outside of you, because you are love, and love is not proud, love is patient, love is unconditional, love is sacrificial. And we thank you for loving us in all of these ways, and for teaching us that really, to learn what love is, we need to be like you and walk, pick up our cross daily, which is a wonderful thing, because you provide. I've really been thinking lately about Simon of Cyrene carrying Jesus' cross, and how, Lord, you provided. No one could go to the cross for Jesus or with him. It's an interesting thing that Simon was there to carry his cross for a bit. It just made me think how you're there, how we have this cross, but you don't ever, we're not crushed by it. And it's a wonderful place to be, at the foot of Jesus. So thank you for the new life you give, and I pray that you'll bless every family that's listening today and every day, because you are good. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so let's move on. So just to give everyone wants to know what is classical conversations. So classical conversations, just going to start with foundations, and it's fun. Basically, that's the bottom line with classical conversations, foundations. We have a lot of fun. How do we do that? Well, we learn stuff. Here's a little sample of what we might learn in a foundation cycle. And it looks pretty dry there on the board. So just to call out, we actually learn a timeline that takes 13 whole minutes to sing. It's that long. All of us, I think, love the history sentences the most. I don't know what, I suppose every little sentence of history is a story, isn't it? So I think everybody loves the history sentences we learn. Science questions, maths, and this is the great thing, you know, these things, what we learn in foundations, by going every week and doing half an hour a day at home, that's it, until you're age 9. And you know, you can do all your other stuff at the same time. Anyway, we'll come to that. So the reason why it's so fun is because we do it to song. There's songs for all of these things. So as one CC mum beautifully says, once you become a CC mum, you basically don't stop singing. Now, I think somebody asked me recently, which I thought was a great question, what criticisms are there of classical conversations? Now, I actually said it's run by mums, so we don't always get right on the ball. You know, people want to know what classical conversations is, and that's fantastic. You know, if you want to know what John Lewis is, you're going to get hold of someone. If you want to know what classical conversations is, you might have to wait, because someone might be having a baby, or, you know, I don't know, helping their teen get through an exam or something. So that was my first criticism. But really, the other criticism is I know, especially people that have heard of Charlotte Mason and like Charlotte Mason, think sometimes that the classical model is something that's at odds with Charlotte Mason. And I think I've heard that that's because they don't like learning random facts. Well, I don't like learning random facts either. The thing with the classical conversations model is that you're always building. So every time you learn a fact, it's just getting stocked in that brain of ours so that we can build on it. And the people that have joined our community who were previously only doing Charlotte Mason say that it's when I say only, it's amazing to do Charlotte Mason. You don't have to do classical conversations. You can just do Charlotte Mason and have a fantastic education and a wonderful time with your family. And I think that's fantastic. Please don't think for a minute that I'm telling you that's inadequate. That is marvelous. It's just, this is just, you know, just like we do as homeschoolers. We always take a bit of this, take a bit of that. Classical conversations is something you can just take a bit of, as well as your lovely Charlotte Mason program, because most of us do that as well, because it's only a half an hour a day. So, and there can be this criticism with memory work that it's boring, but I love this quote by G.K. Chesterton that Actually, children want things repeated and unchanged. They always say, do it again. And the grown-up person does it again until he's nearly dead. For grown-up people are not strong enough to exalt in monotony, but God is strong enough to exalt in monotony. It is possible that God says every morning, do it again to the sun, and every evening, do it again to the moon. I love that. So the mission of Classical Conversations is to know God and to make him known. And the way that Classical Conversations does that is through 3 programs: Foundations, Essentials, and Challenge. Foundations, there's an overlap between Foundations and Essentials, because basically it's 0 to, well, I always say 0. I don't like saying 4 till 12, because let's face it, our 2-year-olds are singing about uniformitarianism in the post office. That's just the way it is. So Foundations and Essentials run up to age 12. So Essential students do Foundations, but they tack on Essentials. So once they get to age 9, they're doing 2 hours of Essentials in the afternoon on a community day, which the Foundation students up to age 9 are not doing. And then the Challenge students, they do a full day in community and full days at home too. So I don't know how familiar you are with the classical model of learning. Here's a funny picture. So the grammar stage, we start at the bottom, goes with foundations, the roots of a tree. When we're learning anything new, so Latin is a good example for this. Lots of mums and people maybe aren't that enthusiastic about learning Latin, but it's a good example for the classical model. And so let's just talk a bit about that. So in Foundations, children will learn declension endings, noun declension endings, will learn conjugations and just Latin vocabulary. We also learn John 1 through 7 in English and Latin. So just again, to song, it's fun. My children, I'd never done Latin before. I just remember they would sing these declension endings. I just could not get it. They sounded the same to me. Anyway, but this is how the brain works. So the more you do it, the more, they don't sound the same to me anymore. I've grown. I've still got a long way to go. So basically, once you've got a load of pegs of information, which is what happens in the Foundations classes and at home with you, you can start to join the dots essentially. It just happens naturally. You're not having to do anything. You're just having to keep learning stuff. And this is what I found. The children would come to me once they started reading and saying, oh yeah, you know, I didn't know that Genghis Khan blah blah blah, or Newton blah blah blah, or you know, something of their Foundations memory work was helping them as they started to read more and more and more and more widely. And that's just that natural stage of learning. You go through to the dialectic stage, which when you grow in understanding, and that's the structure, if you like, that actually comes from having all of these individual facts. Your brain just naturally pieces them together. I love what Lee Borton said in the core. She said, you know, if you think about it, you can go to any supermarket in the world and have a rough idea of where to find the eggs or the butter or the flour. And I just thought, that is pretty amazing, isn't it? Now, it's because, of course, God's made us in this amazing way, and our brain groups things together naturally. But we've never stopped and tried to learn that, have we? We've just exposed ourselves to it. So going back to the trivium, I didn't explain trivium, sorry. Trivium, tri, 3, vium, from via, road, Latin for road. So 3 roads, 3 ways, 3 pathways, 3 stages. The final one is rhetoric, which is what, down there it's got challenge. In the challenge years, I mean, actually in the challenge, you're always learning new stuff. So you're kind of circling this whole process entirely, and all the way through life too, because we're always coming along new things, which is why, again, I love the classical model, because we never stop learning. So it's just basically a tool that we can take with us on our learning. Now, I'm just want to stop sharing and show you, hopefully. Now, oh, that's what I do. Sorry, I am like the worst tech person. So I just need to get up a document and share it with you. I had to come out of, I couldn't figure out how to get it on my slide. So that's why I've had to do it like this. Right now, how do I go back? Zoom, share screen. Right, let's do this. It worked. Good. Okay. Ooh, I need the other one. I'll show you that one in a minute. Just want to show you the first page. Okay, this gives us an overview of what classical conversations is. On one page, some very clever autistic person has been able to do this. So if we start at the top left, so you've got an idea that we meet in community. If we have time, I'll go on and tell you a bit more, but I just thought it's good to have a vision of where we're going. So basically, the program works right the way through to 18. You're probably thinking, what about university? What about exams? And I will get there. We haven't had any graduates yet, basically. But I don't think that's a negative, because actually we're training people up in the way that they should go. We're not training people up for the exam or so basically if we're training them up for the way that they should go, they should be able to go where God wants them to. Is it? And that isn't just hope, a sad hope. It's rigorous. This program is good, solid learning. And what my son's found, actually, he's been doing some SAT papers, and he said it's just now he understands certain things about why he did certain things in CC, and he's managed to seamlessly go into that. Just don't want to lose anyone on that issue at the beginning. So foundations is 4 to 12, just going back up to the top left, 4 to 12-year-olds, we meet for 3 hours a week and do science experiments, art projects, presentations and memory games. Essentials are 9 to 12-year-olds, we meet in the afternoon 2 hours a week for 24 weeks and do weekly writing practice, maths games and language practice. Oh, that was the example of Latin that I hopped off. So basically we learn all those, sorry, just going back to the trivium thing. In Essentials, what happens is you can carry on doing Latin at home, but we actually look really in depth at our own language, English. It's huge, what we learn in Essentials about English grammar. And it helps us to learn Latin later on. So that would be a dialectic understanding thing. It's a combination of grammar, new things, learning parts of speech, prepositions, all the different kinds of verbs, pronoun tables, what is a pronoun, what is a preposition, there's so many things, and how to diagram sentences, so that helps with your writing and your thinking, that program. That's just one 45-minute session. The writing practice is something separate. So. And then, of course, once you get to the challenge years, you get to ultimately do what you did in Essentials, which is all that identifying parts of speech and diagramming, but in Latin. And then you translate original Latin accounts of history. So it's also a history program. So it's rich, it's integrated, it's in depth, and it's a natural progression. And like I said about the supermarket thing, the brain does it, actually. As long as you put the work in, the brain does what it needs to. So challenge, we for 12 plus, just because of the content, you might have an absolute bright spark, but experience has shown that actually it's best wait until they're 12 before they start challenge. Because of course they want to get into some of the real issues of life when you're becoming a teen. I think we sometimes forget that it's quite a modern thing, not as home educators, as a society, we forget that it's quite a modern thing to baby our children in through the teen years and onwards. So challenge, we do subjects of literature, writing, debate, science, maths, history, language, logic, public speaking. Basically every week we meet 6 hours, taking an hour for each of the 6 subjects, and it's very much like a university style education. The students work hard in the week, ready to come and discuss, present, mock trial, presentations, all sorts. And it's just that wonderful thing, that body that we were thinking about before, that as home educating parents, I think well, certainly for me, when we were doing foundations, there's so much flexibility. You spend your whole life going out and doing wonderful things. But what's been interesting is as they've become teens, you just you can't spend your, well, you can, some people can, and I take my hats off to them because I don't know how to do that. We've wanted, I suppose, it's just, well, I guess as you're led, we felt that we really needed to knuckle down and get through some of the academics side of things, and that's where the community really comes in for the teens. And that's why I do say to people, if you're interested in a community, really would encourage you, don't look for where there is a community, grab a mate and start one, just the two of you, because then you're on each other's doorstep already, you can grow that way. And if we had done that right on our doorstep, which I did try, just anyway, I wasn't as good as Yinka. But the point is that if you have your mates right there, when they get to their teens, they'll love you for it, because that's what they want. And I think that's a really hard thing for us as home educators to provide as they go into those teens years. Because that's the nice thing. When we get together, we don't have to stop working. Whereas the autonomy of the homeschooler can mean that getting together means you're only getting together in your social. So you've got that tension all the time. Whereas we're getting together to do work, which I don't know why I said it like that, because you would think work was a terrible thing. I mean, it's fun. The children, it's like, I don't honestly think I'm over egging it to say it's a bit like Christmas once a week. I don't know if everyone celebrates Christmas, but whatever it is that you do that you look forward to, you have that same buzz around the house, getting ready for CC Day. And you have the same tiredness that you have after the festivities the day after too. So I did say I'd show you the next screen. It's something to do with graduates in the States who are 13 years ahead of us. So, but these are, so the mission, just to reassure you, that CC is driven by this mission to know God and to make him known. It's been such a gift. The people that I've met through, you see my fancy title now. So because I love this program so much, and you just wonder, don't you, but the people that I've met, these core values, grace, humility, integrity, diligence, excellence, that's what CC corporate, they've racked their brains and prayed about it, and they've tried to think, okay, what are our core values? And that's what they've come up with. So I can assure you that the people that are doing this, they want you to be a success, because we realize that this lovely little image in the top right, to be successful as Christians, we need to take God at the heart of our world, and we need to look for him in everything that we're learning. And this whole thing that I've been saying about, we don't have to try very hard, actually, it all just, the brain does it. That's what all is about, that we can be in our challenge class looking at maths, and all of a sudden, something comes up that we did in debate. And so you're there for a bit. And it's not that you spend your whole second, you do pretty much, try to focus on maths for an hour. But if the conversation takes you somewhere, you can go, because this is what happens. God does this amazing thing. So I'm just moving up just so you can see. So I know we don't do SAT or ACT in the UK. Interestingly, I was going to say, my son's been doing some research on GCSEs and what have you, and apparently the person that made GCSEs up said that we should scrap them, because they were put in when there's this great website, Derek Gillard. It's something to do with the history of education. I've discovered it recently. He's got loads of really interesting stuff about the history of education. Anyway, when we first, as a nation, put our children in high school, of course, that was when my grandparents were children, so not that long ago. And that's why GCSEs came in, because they were a way for employers to understand what young people have been doing up until 16. Nobody really leaves at 16. So actually the UK is alone in Europe. I think there may be one other country who assesses at 16. So I hope that's a liberating thought for you, because if actually people, other countries and nations are assessing at 18, why can't we? Especially when you've got this fantastic program that takes you all the way up to 18. So there we go. That's a thought. So let's do, I just stopped my screen share. Let's just get that other one back up. I think I don't want to be going on for too much longer. That's not the one, that's the one. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen. And sorry, I'm just trying to move the, go away. Never mind, you'll have to, I can't sort that out. Okay, somebody asked me about resources, and this is where we are on, oh look, I'm sure, hopefully you can see family favourites, which I didn't mean to share now, but let's do it because we're short of time. So if you were going to buy, but no, someone asked me about classical education resources, which is a great question, and I'm sorry I haven't replied just yet. And I will do as well in chat box, or however you do it on this Wahova thing, however you say it as well. If you want a teaspoon of information about the classical model, Google Dorothy Sayers' The Lost Tools of Learning. I don't know if Yinka, you could pop that in the chat box. Thank you. The Lost Tools of Learning is free on the internet as a PDF. You can print it out. That's a good little teaspoon of information. If you want a banquet of information, it's not actually highlighted on here. There's a book called The Well-Trained Mind, which is like a big dictionary kind of book. If you want a book that you will use, I reckon, whether you decide to do a classical model of learning or not, I really recommend the top left one on my screen. I don't know if it's top right on yours. The Core by Lee Bortins. She got 3 there: the core, the question, the conversation. Each one is meant to reflect the trivium. So the core is the grammar, the question is the dialectic, and the conversation is the rhetoric. So the core has just got loads of tips in it. And then the middle one on the bottom, classical Christian education made approachable. I was buying one thinking, if I researched and thought, I think I want to do this, that's the one to get, just because it's wonderful. Okay, I don't want to keep you too long, so I'm just trying to have a quick look at where we should take you. I'm aware I've missed things off. Maybe we'll just go there. Let's just try and, oh, that's what I need to do, play. Okay, good. So that's just to show that it's a really liberating program. So love and learning shared does not equal love and learning divided. Just like when you have children, you have more children. Having more children doesn't mean love is divided, and having more people to do learning with doesn't mean learning is divided. It just means love and learning is multiplied. So you can do it everywhere, foundations, you can do it at home, do it community, 2 are better than 1, the Bible tells us. Foundations, what do I need to know? 3, 2, 1, three things. There are 3 cycles, which are repeated twice each. 2 families to start. It's much better to do it with someone else, find a buddy, foundations guide, and then you're good to go. Essentials, what do I need to know? 1, 2, 3. You need 1 tutor. So that's something you have to sign up with, because I think they've just spent so long getting their materials together. They want it to be a success. And if you could just buy the materials, honestly, I don't think it would be. I think you have to do this in community because it's hard and we need each other. So we need someone to tutor it, and we need the guide. And oh, look, I don't know how this works. It's supposed to pop up with things. There we go. Essentials of English language, Institute for Excellence in Writing and Maths. So we've got 3 programs. I've just given you that little slide as like a snapshot of, because there's a lot of information and it's a new thing, so I'm not surprised if you might be a little lost. It's been 10 years in the making, me understanding this thing. So if you're understanding it, well done. Will my child be able to attend uni? This is in America. And I only say that because I know people that really want to know that this is a proven path. You can go to university. And I understand that, because we don't want to mess up our children. We don't want to inhibit their opportunities. I think God's in control. And I think if we ask him what we should do, I think he'll show us. And that's what we've been doing. And it just struck me really recently when Jake seems to be getting some really positive results, and doors seem to be open to him pursuing higher education. You know, we prayed about this our whole lives. God's not going to give us a serpent now. So there you go. That's my thinking on it. That's that. There we go. Look how it's grown. Modern education. I'll just briefly cover this because I think it's fascinating. So if you're drawing a model of the modern education, you'd have the student in the middle, subjects around the outside. The student's in control. He decides what he's going to learn and when. If you're going to have a poor Christian education, if I can possibly move on to the next slide. There we go. You would have, you'd have the Bible study. A good Christian education shifts the student out. This is about God and all the subjects that he made. A great Christian education lets every subject give God the glory, and a classical Christian education allows this wonderful bubbling up through all of the processes, through all of the subjects, through all of the people. And of course, God's in the center. So actually knowledge puffs up, but God has the knowledge, not the student. So as we grow in knowledge and understanding and wisdom, guess what the result is? It's love. It's so nice. Our home has been transformed through doing this program. I can't tell you. We have gone from unloved to love, and I would be heartbroken if anyone would have told me that. I would have described my family as being an unloved family, because I've always loved my children and I've wanted a loving home for them. But the realities of life are hard, and it's hard home educating, and it's hard being nice to your children all the time. And it's hard having all of your failings put up like a mirror every single day. But you know, I think God does that for a reason, because he wants us to get to our knees and say, I can't do this, please help. And what he's done is he's led us in the way, like Psalm 1 talks of, you know, led us in the ways of peace and refreshing. And we don't live in a perfect house. We're not always nice to each other, but there is a lot of love, and it's from God. So why consider CC? Flexibility, autonomy, community. As I was writing, I realized there was a lot of whys. So the why considers CC. The fourth why is yes, we would love you to join us. The nice thing about doing CC in the UK that struck me as I've been reflecting on this role and what it means for our nation, and praying for our nation to turn back to God. Tomorrow, please pray. Christian Concern are challenging the government on the judicial review of some of their decisions that they made during the COVID-19 Act, which they told us they were going to do one thing and they did something else. And you might be aware of it, and I hope you are. And if you're only just aware of it, please pray that justice will win out tomorrow in the courts. And if you can attend Ben's talk, he's giving a talk on the Wilberforce tomorrow, Benjamin John from CCFON. That's a great week for your teens. So classicalconversation.co.uk is where you can find out testimonies, more information, loads of things. So that's just a little slide, that's the thing, and there's the Zoom details. If you are free to join us, that would be lovely. And I think I am done. So thank you, Lord, for this time. Thank you for showing us a different way to live and to learn, and pray that this way and every way that everyone chooses, Lord, will ultimately bring you glory, because we are all different. And I don't for 1 minute think that everyone should be doing classical conversations, but I do want us as a nation to turn back to the sovereignty of God. And so, Lord, we seek your blessing on this nation and these mamas. God bless everybody. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.